Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to The Upside. I'm Jonathan Oleski with JMOR, and we're very excited to welcome you to our virtual show. It's brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR to keep Jewish Baltimore informed during this time of uncertainty. Now, if you have any questions for our guest today, and he's going to be wonderful, please be sure to type them into the Zoom chat or message JMOR via our Facebook page. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's hosts, Beth Goldsmith, Chair of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, and Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMOR. Beth and Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Jonathan. And this is an exciting show. We're talking about one of the silver linings from this pandemic, and that is the increase in the number of pets that have been adopted, many of which are rescue animals. And I guess it's not surprising. The physical and mental health benefits reaped from owning an animal have been well documented for years, and even more so during this past year. According to one study taken during this period, more than 90% of pet owners said their pet helped them cope emotionally during lockdown. And 96% said their pet helped keep them fit and active. So does this trend apply in our own community? And what can we expect as we return to normal? Scott?
Thank you, Beth. Thank you. You know, I never thought I'd meet somebody who was more of an animal lover than my wife and my daughter. And then I met Andrew a number of years ago. And Andrew is by far the biggest animal lover that I've ever met and has done an amazing job of running the Baltimore Humane Society. So our guest today is Andrew Levine. He's president of the Baltimore Humane Society. And let me start with a question, Andrew. Andrew, thank you for being here, by the way.
Of course.
And let me start with, let's go with a little history, because I think the history of the Humane Society, we have lots to talk about, but the history of the Humane Society in Baltimore County is really worth talking about. It is fascinating. Do you mind doing that for a couple of minutes, if you would, Andrew?
Of course, glad to do it. So the Humane Society history goes back to Mrs. Elsie Barton. And the shelter is the organization is 92 years old, which is amazing that it's made it this far, and it's getting better every day. Mrs. Barton was an avid animal lover. She had health issues growing up. She had polio, and her love was animals. That was the bottom line, and her family knew it, and that's all she really focused her life around. So she started a shelter many years ago, obviously, and the focus was to make sure, number one, animals had a safe haven, not only from abuse, but those that lost their homes. And she wanted to have a place where they're taken care of. Two, obviously a medical center so that they had the right treatments. And the worst part, but a nice part, is when they part. And she has started a pet cemetery. So basically you have your pet from the day you adopt them to the day they pass, but at least you know that they're in a nice resting place and it's taken care of. Humane, everything is done humanely. And that's really what the name Humane Society is all about. So the family, Mrs. Barton, they used to own all the land that was where Green Spring Avenue and the Baltimore Beltway is located. And the county or the state, whenever they were ready to build the Baltimore Beltway, which is 695, they needed that property. So they did a swap, basically. And the land that we are on right now, which is around 365 acres out in Reisterstown on Nicodemus Road, they swapped that land for the property that the state or county needed to build the Beltway. So it's kind of a neat, right in the heart of Pikesville, so it's a neat history there. So they did a swap, and Mrs. Barton was able to, and realized before the Beltway, that was where she was located, right where the Beltway is at Green Spring Avenue and the exits there. So the property we're on now is, it is an animal, a nature preserve, the entire property. And that was one of her goals, so that even wildlife are protected. And so all the land out there doesn't get any prettier where we're at. So that's where we're at. And little by little, she built the property up, and she lived there. There was a little house that's still there that we are fixing up little by little. We have projects that we're doing. She even had her barn. She had horses there. She even rescued. We have an elephant buried in the cemetery that she rescued from Ringling Brothers, that was actually abused, and that lived on the property. She had bears. She even had a monkey, donkeys, which we have a picture of her donkey in our boardroom. And the picture of the donkey is from a tree that fell that they made a frame out of on the property. I mean, the list goes on. This woman was just tremendous. She had parades of horses with the county police, when they had horses, and the state police, and even the fire department, where they had parades of just people bring their horses and they ride their horses. And it's just, you feel the emotion, you feel it as soon as you walk onto the property, especially if you know the history there. There's nothing more to say that she was just an amazing woman.
So she set up the Humane Society to start with.
Yeah, and she had houses on the property there that she had staff living. And when she built the current shelter, it was state of the art back then. Obviously, we need to, we're always fixing it. Excuse me, I have a dog scratching that wants to sit on my lap.
Andrew, you have to tell everybody how many dogs you have.
I have a few, but that's okay. We don't publicize, but everything we have is a rescue. And come here, Cody. Come on.
Yeah. Andrew has quite an array.
Yeah. But everything is rescued. I mean, we've had dogs that are, paralyzed, that the veterinarian said would never walk again, that we've rehabbed. I did rehab in my own basement. Actually, I still do it I help other people if they have an animal that's and have physical issues, and I've learned how to rehab physically, which is just, it's an amazing feeling. And
so, Andrew, tell us about the Humane Society today. I know you're a no-kill shelter, which is a huge issue, okay?
Yep.
But tell us a little bit more about what the Humane Society does today.
Well, it's more than just, rescuing animals. Obviously, community outreach is a big part of what we do. We need to educate. Education is a big part of treating animals properly. We're very involved in the community. We have someone who runs an education program for children who's on our board. Heather Friedman does a phenomenal job for that. We do adoption events. We have a spay-neuter center for low income. And what we mean by that is, that's a very big part of controlling the pet population. People hear about it on The Price is Right all the time at the end. Bob Barker, at the end, they always say, spay your pet, spay neuter your pet, which is critical. And we have a wellness center now also. So the goal is, people have to surrender their animals from time to time because they can't afford to take care of them. So we have this center that's very low cost, and sometimes we'll donate if need be. We have a food bank there, a pet food bank. So we get a lot of donations for that to help people. Our goal is to have people stay with their pets. And if they're in hardship, we can't give money financially, but we can give some services to help also. So we do everything from adoption to education, to helping those that are in need when it comes to struggling to keep their pet. Of course, we also have pet cemetery services. We have a beautiful pet cemetery there that's very, very well maintained. I think everybody in this area has a pet buried in that cemetery, in the Pikesville, this Northwest corridor. Of course, I do. And so it touches many, many, many people, goes back many generations. And and the staff now, when I got there, we had around 6 or 7 full-time employees. This was around 11 years ago. 12 years ago, we have close to 40 now, which is, a lot of testament to the board and the staff that we've built brick by brick, person by person, that has enabled us to get to this point. So it's a great team effort.
And how many animals every year are you able to place in new homes?
Last year was around on an average around 13 to 1400, maybe higher, depending on seasons. When I got there around 11 years ago, we were averaging maybe 400 to 500 a year, and sadly they were euthanizing, which is just a horrible thing. Just because an animal is not adopted in a certain time frame doesn't mean they're not adoptable. We completely eliminated all of that. We've had dogs and cats in our kennel for quite a long time, and they eventually will find a forever home, and they always do. So that's the ultimate goal. So we could adopt out quite a bit. There's a lot of animals that go through our doors, and people don't realize if they go through behind the scenes, when on a dog or cat or animal, we take hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbits. I mean, we take all the little guys, and when they come through the doors, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, to get them to the adoption floor. We have an intake wing that the animals need to go through like 3 or 4 days, mental and physical health, to make sure that they're ready to go, and then they get moved to the adoption floor eventually, and they're given all their shots. And the amount of work that the staff does behind the walls is just incredible to get these animals ready and happy. Happy is they've got to be happy. And I always tell people, if you're going to be a homeless pet, we're the place to be at, because we're going to make it a home for them, and they're going to get the love and the attention that they need and deserve. And not just the feeding and so on. It's the actual caring and letting them know that they're wanted. And that leads to high quality adoptions. And the work is incredible what the staff does, and we're just so proud of everything that they do each day.
It's also good to hear. Let me just jump in and see. So I've adopted a pet, or maybe I've had a pet for a long time, and I've been with him 24/7 for the last year in lockdown. We're talking about now the pets themselves. What do I do as I start to have to leave for work? My kids are starting to go back to school. Can you talk to us a little bit about the separation anxiety and what people can do to sort of ease the transition as we return to real life, ease that transition for our pets?
The truth of the matter is, I think the people are going to have a harder problem than the animals. I mean, we always kind of joke around a bit, saying, there's a lot of memes that are out there saying, I have one on my phone right now, actually, someone sent me about there's a cat saying, what are they doing here so long? It's just, we need our own privacy if once in a while, it's just, I think the separation will be more the people getting upset, but there's always going to be something there. But everybody, animal, dogs and cats, they're very good about that. Everything is learning. It's a learning curve for everybody, and it's an adjustment. And that was always a worry in back of our minds at the shelter, was that if the pandemic is when it's over, are we all of a sudden going to get a lot of animals returned, even though the numbers of animals that were adopted were just record numbers. But I don't really see it being that bad, because people, like you said, were able to bond more than just adopting a dog on a weekend and they got to work all day, come home. And I mean, they really had a chance to bond. And so I don't really see that as going to be a major issue. You'll have some, but I don't see it to be a major situation. But there will be some separation. And for an animal, the best thing is to keep the things going as you normally have it. And if you're going to start leaving, the best thing to do is start leaving in little bits at a time. And, if you're going to go out at night for a few hours or whatever you're going to do, take a walk without the dog or whatever it is, leave the house, or, just little bits and pieces. So they get a little bit of accustomed to separation time. And, they say that dogs and cats can't tell time. You've seen videos of people who go in the military away for a year or 2 years, and then they come home, and you've seen those videos of the dogs going absolutely crazy when they see them, because they don't know time. They get just as excited sometimes if you leave for an hour. But sure, there's a bigger buildup, and they definitely miss their owners. But everything's got to be done brick by brick and piece by piece, and that's what we always recommend.
Would you go a little more into, because we do have two sides to this equation. I know happily many shelters were empty during the pandemic because all the pets had been adopted.
Mm-hmm.
So would you tell us a little bit about how, if someone wants to adopt a pet now, how they go about it? And then the other side of that is, if someone, because they're returning to work, finds that they can't take care of their pet anymore, or because of financial crises during this time, they can't take care of their pet anymore. Talk about both sides of how you take in pets and how we can come and get them from you.
Sure. So to adopt a pet right now, because of the pandemic, of course, we do everything by appointment only, which has still been very successful because we just don't want people getting overcrowded and people get uncomfortable when they're searching for a pet. So most of the shelters around the country are doing it by appointment only. Now, obviously, if you show up, we're not going to turn people away. We're just going to tell them, just if they could wait, patiently outside until, the appointments are over or whatever we can to squeeze them in, or we could separate it a bit. So the adoption process is still the same, and you can do it online. Go onto our website, and if you see a particular animal, you can fill out an application on that animal ahead of time before you get there. And that makes the process a lot easier, and it kind of puts a little bit of a stamp on them. But we can't always guarantee it, because we do it by first come first serve all the time. We can't just oh, by the way, someone just filled out an application too. It's the fairest way to do it. Of course, it's got to be a great home too, and a loving family, loving owner. On the surrender side, we always recommend, of course, contacting the shelter ahead of time. So we're prepared and we have the runs ready for that. Obviously, that's the worst feeling in the world, is when, and I've been there because I actually ran the shelter for around 6 years myself as a volunteer director when I took it over. And the first time I really teared up in a long time, seeing an animal turn their head, seeing a family and owner drive away. It just goes right through you. So we always recommend calling ahead of time so the staff is prepared and they make the process very quick. When they just show up randomly, we have a lot of questions to ask, and there's things that we have to go through health-wise too, to make sure they have their, if they have the vaccinations. If they don't, a lot of times people just, we historically used to have people just tie their animals up at the gate and leave them. We've had people just bring them in. I had someone there once that brought the dog, opened the trunk of their car and took the dog out. I mean, it's just insane. There's no gray area in the job of what the staff does. It's either a high or a low. It's a high of them going adopted, or low of them being surrendered. There's really hard to get a gray area. So definitely call the shelter ahead of time, because we do have a process. Even with or without a pandemic, there's still a process. But if they're just going to show up, obviously you're going to have to wait a little bit. And some people can't handle that, sadly. And I get it, because they can't say goodbye. They'll just leave the dog or cat and just go. We've had them leave them in crates and just go. We have no history on the pet. So those that we have no history on, they obviously have to stay in the intake wing probably an extra 2 or 3 days, so we can get to know them a little bit more, their behavior, because we do go through behavior testing and obviously health-wise. And the best scenario is if they're going to surrender, also bring your veterinary, your paperwork, so we know that they're vaccinated. So, it does save us money too, because otherwise we have to go through all the vaccinations again. And people don't realize, the public, that before an animal even gets to the adoption floor at our shelter, we have an average of almost $360 to $380, even more, depending on the health of the pet, of a dog, for example, before we even get them to the adoption floor. And we can only charge $250 for an adoption fee, approximately. So the shelter industry is that you can't, even though we're a nonprofit, it's very hard to generate positive revenues, because animals that are surrendered, we have so much that goes into them before they even get to the adoption floor. Some of them have some bad physical ailments, and we have to, put a lot more time and medical into them. It's a big gap that we have to cover each time.
So Andrew, we're going to talk about money in a second, I promise, because I think that's important. Talk a little bit about, we mentioned earlier that more animals have been adopted during the pandemic, but you still have animals that need homes. Talk about that, okay? And how many animals you still have, that dogs, cats, and everything else that are still looking for homes.
There's never a shortage, really, per se. So because of the pandemic, the adoptions were very high nationwide, obviously. What we do is down south and other shelters that are kill shelters that are still struggling, we will pull from them, and we'll find space for animals from them, and we will make them adoptable in cases where they weren't in that situation at a kill shelter. So our relationship with many shelters are very tight, especially like Barks downtown. I mean, that's just a lose-lose proposition. It's amazing what they go through. And so we have animals all the time, great animals. And like I said, whether the dogs, cats, guinea pigs, even little pet rats, which are, people don't like them, but they're rather cool animals. But the answer, to get further in your question, we will always have animals for adoption, regardless. And we usually have anywhere from usually on average around 70 to 100 animals.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a pet rat, and she used to have it sit on her shoulder. It was a little unnerving, but she really loved the animal. She thought it was responsive and smart, and really enjoyed the animal, and mourned its death when it died. I mean, it was really close with the animal. Let's talk about finances for a minute. On one hand, you've been able to adopt out more animals, which is expensive in itself. On the other hand, you're fundraising. You're not supported by government, if I recall correctly. Your money comes entirely from the small fees you charge and from fundraising. So talk about the impact on your fundraising events and how community folks have responded or could respond.
So our revenues, and Scott, you hit it on the nose. We're a private organization. We don't depend on any public money. We start just off the bat. We start off in the red, and every fiscal year. And the reason is I'll try to mention again. Well, first, the way we make our revenues, generate revenues, are through adoptions, through cemetery fees, and fundraising. Those are really, and of course the medical center. But we have to keep our rates low for low income, so it's very hard to compete. Excuse me. No, I don't have chickens. That was that was my phone, and that was sorry about that. Anyway, I forgot to turn it off. Anyway, so right off the bat, when an animal comes in, there's a lot of cost that goes into the pet before they are adopted, and from shots and the time that they're in the intake wing. On an average, it costs us per year. I'll give you an idea. To generate around $250,000 in adoption revenue, it costs us $750,000 to get them to the adoption floor, because of all the time that goes into it. If we made our adoption fees $500, $600, $700, people wouldn't adopt from us. We always said if the world was full of puppies and kittens, animal shelters wouldn't exist, and which is true. So there's a lot of work that goes into the animals, labor, food, medical expenses, etc. And so before they even get to the floor, we're already in the hole. But that's what we are. That's what we already know that, and that's what we do. And we work really, really hard to generate our increase on fundraising. So this may sound like an awkward thing. Usually you say, well, the more sales you get in something, the better your business is. Actually, because we start off in the red with every animal that comes in, the more adoptions we have, the more money we have to raise because of that gap. So that's just the way it is. So revenues are critical. Sorry, my dog.
And you have two big fundraisers every year.
Yes.
One is your Black Tie and Tails, which is, for anybody who hasn't been, is a fun event. Hundreds of people show up and they bring their animals.
Yep.
It is the only playtime that you can ever see a dance floor full of people and dogs walking around, and some little kids are there. It's a phenomenal evening event and a fun event. And you also have Dog Fest that you have, I guess, what's that, in August or July?
It's in October, usually in October.
Mm-hmm. October. And you haven't been able to do those for the last year. So how are you making up the difference?
Well, that has just been really, really, really strenuous on the organization. The Black Tie and Tails, which is and Dog Fest, which are for our income coming in. Those are spikes at certain. That's why we do one in the spring and one in the fall. So we get a nice spike, and that money that we raise really helps get us through the following months. So the last 2 years have been last year has been very, it's been strenuous on the organization because those spikes are gone of that income level. And not just that, it's just the support. We get a lot of people that not just raise money at the event, but we bring in more people of interest that want to get involved with the shelter. So it hurts us with volunteers too, across the board. What we've had to do this year is really streamline the operation quite a bit, which the animals are very well taken care of, but we've had to streamline, and we've had to split the staff into sections, meaning normally, if you have them, everyone used to work on a Monday, we'd have to separate groups. So you have certain groups working Monday, certain groups working Tuesday. So that way, if we do have an outbreak, that don't have to shut everything down. We have the next group ready to go. So we've had to stagger the staff and thin things out, and we've had to cut back some, like with fundraising. Lisa Poland, who's our development director, she can't get out to see people really. It's really hindered quite a bit. Our community events, where we get a lot of interest and people donate, we haven't been able to be involved in community outside events besides Dog Fest and Black Tie and Tails. Black Tie and Dog Fest, you get thousands and thousands of people. Our first year we had like 7,000 people there. It was tremendous, and that was like 10 years ago, and it continues to grow. So it really hurts us quite a bit. But like I said, it's not just the revenues hurt, but everything gets crumbles down, and it's a business effect is really what it is. So yes, so they have really hurt us, and fundraising is now more than ever the most critical for the organization. And because we've lost those two events, and we're going to lose them again this year. This will be our second time we'd have to cancel Black Tie and Tails, and we have some great sponsors. And the people, love to attend, and they're glad to pay the price, because where can you go in town, a Black Tie event with your dog? You can't. We're the only game. So it really hurts quite a bit.
What's amazing about that event, Andrew, and I've been many times, as you know, is how well behaved the animals are. The animals are better behaved than the people. It's great. It's really a great event.
They do.
Talk a little bit, and this reaches between Facebook and YouTube. Couple of thousand people each show we do. So take a minute and talk about how folks in the audience can help the Humane Society and help the animals. Where can they go to donate? Where can they go to volunteer? Where can they go to work with you?
First thing is, our main focus, our number one focus is always the animals. That's what we're about. It's the animals, right? So we have to be the voice. We have to speak for them. So when we do a voice and we speak out for raising money, we're speaking on their behalf, and that's what we try to tell people, that we are their voice. And we like to say, kind of help the helpless. An animal can't do these things. We have to do it for them. So number one, donations. Financial donations are critical to our existence and to our future. continue to build our bridge. We have projects that we'd like to do that we have not been able to do, obviously, because of the pandemic and all the setbacks that we've had to absorb. So, people can go online, you can mail a check to the Humane Society. A lot of people mix us up with the SPCA, which is common, and I say that we're the Humane Society. It's a separate entity. And a lot of people donate to the National Humane Society in Washington, D.C., the United States Humane Society. Humane Society of the United States, they don't give a dime to animal shelters. They're a
lobby. They're a lobby.
They're lobbyists. Thank you. They're a lobbyist group, and that's all they do. I wish they would give money. They don't give any money. So make sure when you make your contribution, it goes to the Baltimore Humane Society.
Andrew, your website is a little unusual. So give the address of the website.
Okay, let's took the words out of my mouth. It is bemorehumane.org. The letter B, the word more, humane.org. And just think of like Be More, like the nickname Be More, Baltimore, but it also says Be More Humane. There's two little slangs in that in our website name. That's why we did it. So it says Be More Humane. Or the organization is the Humane Society of Baltimore County, but we changed the name to the Baltimore Humane Society because we service many throughout the state. Actually, we get adoptions throughout the state. So we just kind of do business as the Baltimore Humane Society. So if you go to our website, you can make a contribution. You can contact our office. We have a wonderful volunteer coordinator now that the pandemic is not completely settled down, but things are going to get better. We will be able to open up to volunteers. We need foster homes, very big for us. It's very critical. They're still on the website, the foster system, and pet's still on the website. Someone sees it, and a foster would literally just bring the pet in when someone's ready to see it, bring it to the shelter, or if they're comfortable, they can come to the house. Fosters, volunteering. We have a wonderful board of directors, and I bring this up. Scott's wonderful wife, Fran, is on our board. And Fran and I have become very dear friends over the years. And, we're always interested in interviewing board members. And, we're not that type of board that people think, nose in the air type. We're not. We're animal people. We hug each other after meetings. It's a very, very casual attire. And the concept and the discussion is animals, not about people. It's about animals only. And how can we make life better for animals at our shelter and in the community? That's what we're about. And we love energy. We need people with good ideas. And and if people just want to contribute financially, that's wonderful. Then that helps us a great deal. And we're never going to say no to that, but it helps the animals. And that's where every dime goes to the shelter, is to the animals. I think if you look at our each of our audit, our administrative costs are like 15%. It's minimal, because every dime pretty much goes to the shelter. And you need administrative management, of course, but the most of the money goes to it. And that's, look at our Guide Star. We're a 5-star rated organization. When I got there around 10, 11 years ago, the staff and the board worked so hard, went from a 1 to a 5-star, because it was an effort of everybody. They worked really, really hard. So your money is going to work in a positive way. So in that Guide Star rating, we take very, very seriously. And Lisa Poland, who's our development director, is our first time we really can afford a full-time development director. She's joined us around a year and a half ago, right before the pandemic of all times. And she's the type of person who needs to get out and see people, and she's full of energy and dynamic. But she's done a good job, managing things from behind the scenes the best she can. We have a marketing director. And if you have contacts and friends that want to get involved, then do it. You can get groups that want to raise money, walk groups. It's not a matter, fine. We've had kids drop off their piggy bank full of coins to the shelter. I mean, let me tell you, every little bit adds up, and it goes a long way. And it's all about the animals, and that's where it's at.
Andrew?
Yes.
Andrew, so we have a question from one of our viewers today who wants to know specifically, do you need volunteers right now to walk dogs? Very specific question.
I can say that I can't answer that this second, but I know we do need volunteers, and I do think that we will need some dog walkers. And get in line now, because once the pandemic's over, it's better to get in line now. And when we say dog walkers, we're on 365 acres, and it's not just walking. I mean, it's gorgeous. We have this gentleman has been doing it for years. He literally comes there. He's been coming there every day since I've been there, at least almost 11 years. He's in great shape, and he walks and runs with these dogs. It's incredible. And he walks around literally, I would say, at least 5 to 10 miles a day. Wow. He's there, rain, snow, and shine. And in the spring, we have a swimming pool in the back that's an above ground that we actually use to rehab animals that have bad legs, and they always need help with the swimming pool and helping with these dogs. And it's the list goes on. And but you have to go through a process. It's not a matter of just going in and here's a dog. I mean, we have a training process that you have to go through, and their insurance policy requires it so that you are properly prepared.
Great, thank you.
So Andrew, you're running and volunteering to run because you've done this for all these years and never been paid a penny, and I'm well aware of that. It's incredible what you've done, and it's incredible what the Humane Society has done. So I want to thank you. And Beth, if you've got other questions, let me turn it over to you.
No, I just wanted to add my thanks and a little PR of my own for how wonderful you guys are. My little furry man, that's actually what it says on his little plaque, it is out there. It's just the whole process, as horrific as it is to lose a pet, it was just wonderfully handled out there. My son and I came, were able to see him in his little box. We're able to go and actually watch him be buried. And, now we have a place to go and see him. And my family pets are there. Like you said, everyone has at least one. My brother knows where all of them are, all of our family dogs, and visits all of them. So it really is quite an extraordinary place. I just want to thank you personally beyond, there's a furry man. Is that a man?
He's my little man. He's my shadow. It's Cody. One thing I'll say about that
so I just wanted to add that, the personal thank you for what you do, what your volunteers are doing. And we hope that real life comes to visit us again very soon,
that'll be
so
wonderful.
That we can all get back to normal. Do you have any last words for us?
I have two things. One thing also, in what you said, we are probably the only place in Baltimore that offers pet bereavement. I don't know if it's in classes, but we have pet bereavement groups that are run by Veronica, who runs our cemetery. She's certified, and losing a pet is like an awful feeling. My mother always said to me, "You didn't cry when your aunt died." your dog, your dog, that was a mess. I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's just you're so attached to these little guys, and but we offer pet bereavement groups, and they really help, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And it really, like I said, we're here to service the animals, service the owners, and really help them feel better about themselves, and hopefully they'll always come back. That's a critical thing. But like I said, we encourage any involvement and anything that people can do to spread the word about the organization. Helps the animals, helps the staff, and that's what we're all about. And like I said, we're very interested in interviewing some potentially new board members, and we have some space on the board now. And by all means, you could reach out to me. I don't know how you guys go, Scott, if you have a way to.
Why don't you give out your email address as well, Andrew?
Okay. So my email address is Levine. Andrew, just Levine, like the singer, but I can't sing and dance. So it's Levine at bemorehumane.org, letter B, word more, and the word humane, all one.org. And of course, you can go to the website and just send in an inquiry. We have one board member that I'll say that she sent out around 10 applications, inquiries to 10 different boards. And this is around a year and a half ago, close to 2 years ago, and said we're the only organization that responded. And that's who we are. We had 2 board members that inquired, and we will follow up. And we do have a process, but we just want to have good people that care, and that's what matters.
That's a
Awesome.
great point
Awesome.
to end it. Beth,
Yeah.
Andrew, so
yeah,
much.
Thank you.
Beth, it's all yours.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. And thank you, Andrew. Thank you to your little furry guy there for saying goodbye. A subject close to so many of our hearts, our pets. And so it's great to know there's places for you there, not just as a volunteer, but even as a board member. So don't forget, be more humane. That I love it. It's a great catchy email contact information. So thanks again for being here. Thank you to our audience. I hope you'll join us again next Tuesday at noon for another great show. In the meantime, as always, I encourage you to visit associated.org and jmoreliving.com. There's always fun and interesting information, stories, and resources. And sign up for our weekly newsletter. And until next week, I hope you will all stay well.